harvest.
Greetings, Africa FM listeners, and this is Widad Allaoua with your Pan-African News appointment. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune instructs the immediate return to Niamey of Algeria's ambassador accredited to the Sister Republic of Niger. The decision comes following the return to Algeria and the resumption of duties on February of the Nigerian ambassador accredited to Algeria. It also reflects the high importance the President Tebboune attaches to strengthening ties of fraternity and cooperation with Niger. During an intervention in the 48th session of the African Union Executive Council, Algeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, praises South Africa for its distinguished G20 presidency, highlighting the historic significance of Johannesburg Summit as the first G20 held under an African presidency and on African soil. Let's listen to Ahmed Attaf.
Algeria once again emphasizes the importance of the optimal preparation of the African Union in this group, because participation is not an end in itself, but rather a means through which we seek to help lift our continent out of marginalization and exclusion. From this perspective, my country's delegation supports the measures previously adopted to share representation responsibilities between the Commission and the rotating presidency, and propose drawing inspiration from the Oran process experience to unify the African voice within the G20 as well.
And still with the 48th session of the African Union Executive Council, as it closes earlier today in Addis Ababa, with Algeria playing a prominent role as ministers adopt key decisions recognizing the country's leadership in youth empowerment and intra-African trade. Our reporter on site, Iman Nouad, brings us more. Hello, Iman.
Hello, Widad, and hello to all Africa FM listeners. Widad, the 48th of the ordinary session of the African Union Executive Council concluded earlier today in Addis Ababa, with Algeria represented by the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf. On behalf of President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, throughout the session, Attaf took part in ministerial deliberations focused on strengthening African unity, institutional reforms, and the implementation of continental priorities. Now, with the closure of this ordinary session, the Executive Council adopts several decisions highlighting Algeria's growing continental role. Ministers commend Algeria's leadership in youth empowerment through the 1 Million at the Next Level initiative, and saluted the country for hosting the Pan-African Youth Forum 2024 with the adoption of Oran Declaration as a key outcome. If we talk on the economic front, the Council praised Algeria for the successful organization of the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025 in Algiers, recognizing its contributions to boost intra-African trade, investment and economic integration, bringing the session to a close on a strong note of cooperation and shared commitment. That is all we have for now. Iman Nouad from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to Africa FM.
Commemorating Algeria's nuclear test victims tomorrow in 1960, France's Blue Jarboa and 17 desert explosions poisoned land, air and water, leaving lasting sickness, birth defects and a scar still felt today in Algeria. Yasmin Ben Ashor brings us back to this tragedy.
On February 13th, 1960, France tested its first nuclear bomb in Argan, Algeria. It was called the Blue Jarboa. French newspapers celebrated it, but they did not show the danger. People near the test were exposed to radiation. The air, the land, and the water was poisoned, and many people got sick. From 1960 to 1966, France did 17 nuclear tests in the desert. Soldiers and local people were not safe. Some soldiers were used secretly to test radiation. Animals like goats and rats were also exposed. Even after Algeria became independent, France left radioactive waste and dangerous sites. Today, the desert is still risky. Survivors and their children suffer from sickness and birth defects. The bombing of Regan remains a tragic chapter in Algeria's story, a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and testing times. It highlights the resilience of the Algerian people who continue to remember the victims and strive for peace, ensuring that such events are never repeated.
On the occasion of the World Radio Day celebrated this year under the theme Radio and Artificial Intelligence as designated by UNESCO, Algerian Radio is organizing a major event under the supervision of its Director General Adel Selaqji. The event is featuring the launch of the English version of Algerian Radio's website alongside the official announcement of the completion of its archive digitization process, a strategic step aimed at advancing the institution's digital transformation. Let's listen to Director General of the Algerian Radio Adel Selaqji during the event.
The completion of the digitalization of the archive does not mean the end of the journey, but rather marks the beginning of a new phase, a phase in which this heritage becomes accessible to citizens at home and abroad and serve as an academic and pedagogic resource for university and educational institutions, as well as material that can be enhanced and utilized in cultural and media production.
Egypt's Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdel Ati shares an informal ministerial level consultation of the African Union Peace and Security Council on the evolving situation in Sudan as part of Egypt's presidency of the Council this month. In addition, Sudan's Foreign Minister Muhammad Salam takes part in this session despite the country's suspended AU membership, underscoring the importance of paying attention to Sudan's perspective and supporting efforts towards stability. In a related development, Sudan's permanent representative to the United Nations office in Geneva, Ambassador Hassan Hamad, strongly condemns remarks made by the representative of the United Arab Emirates regarding the country's announcement of humanitarian donations to Sudan. He rejects what he describes as a contradiction between those statements and the reality on the ground. In Madagascar, the death toll following the passage of Cyclone Gizani continues to rise. At least 9 people confirmed killed and 19 injured in the east of the country. Although the cyclone weakened after landfall, the highest level of alert remains in place due to the risk of flooding as the system currently moves westward across the island. Madagascar's President Colonel Michael Randiarenera describes the impact of Cyclone Gizani on Tuamasina city as a catastrophe, revealing that the storm destroyed nearly 75% of the city, calling on international partners to provide urgent support. The United Nations calls for an immediate strengthening of the response to confront the worst cholera outbreak in Democratic Republic of the Congo in a quarter of a century. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that since the beginning of the year, more than 1,300 suspected cases and 35 deaths have been recorded, noting that government and UN support efforts continue despite funding gaps. Algeria and the European Union will hold their 6th annual high-level energy dialogue today in Algiers. The meeting will be co-chaired by Algeria's Minister of State, Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, and Minister of Energy, Morad Ajal, alongside the European Commissioner for Energy, Dan Jorgensen. The talks come within the framework of the strategic partnership between Algeria and the EU and will focus on reviewing progress in energy cooperation. Libya grants oil and gas exploration licenses to several foreign companies, including Chevron, Eni, Qatar Energy, and Repsol. In its first bidding round in nearly 2 decades, the move is part of efforts to revive the energy sector despite ongoing political risks. These licenses target key acreage in the onshore Sirte and Marzouk basins as well as Mediterranean offshore. Closing up with sports, the establishment of the Sahrawi Football Federation is officially announced in what is described as a pivotal step to strengthening the sporting presence of the Sahrawi Republic at regional and continental levels. The move as well comes as part of broader efforts to consolidate national sports structures and enable participations in various football competitions. This was Harvest of the Day. Thank you for your attention. Join us again tomorrow at the same time, 3 p.m. only at Africa FM.